Affairs don't begin in the bedroom, they begin in childhood. In the part of you that decided she needed to bury her truth just to be loved. The part that's now screaming to be seen. I'm Alex Croxford, and this is the Deeper Love Podcast, where we name the shame, face the guilt, and help you find your way back to yourself. So let's begin. Today, I am speaking with Diera Story, a life coach, podcast host, and a woman I first discovered because she too had a viral reel sharing the truth about her affair. Honestly, that reel stopped me in my tracks. And the more I learned about her, the more I saw how deeply her work aligns with what we explore here. Breaking free from silence, self-abandonment, and the good woman conditioning that keeps so many of us disconnected from love. She supports women to speak their truth, honor their desires, and rebuild their lives from who they really are. And she does it from lived experience, from collapse, motherhood, shame, and awakening. Diera, I am so happy you're here.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction, Alex. I'm so excited to be here. I feel, just to give a little bit of a background for how I was even just drawn into you. It's like when you see another, especially another woman, standing so boldly in who they are and their story and their past, it just makes you feel connected in a way, beyond just, even just we're on the other side of the world from one another, but you feel like there's a part of you or a piece of you in another. And I'm such a believer that that's a huge reason why we're all here, is to connect and to feel seen and safe. And so I'm super excited for this conversation. As I'm sure you can relate to this, when you go through something really big and life-changing, there is so much reflection and processing and going to the depths of, for myself, places that I hadn't really given myself permission to go before. And so, standing where I am today with, there's been so much time and space since that part of, or that piece of my past unraveled. And so it's not necessarily like one specific moment, more of like a compound of many little moments that led up to a place where, and even, going back to being a young girl, there were so many moments in my childhood where I felt the need to create and maintain this very picture perfect exterior. And, through grades or through sports or through, especially, young girls, we receive those accolades of, oh, you're such a good girl. And then, I continued to strive for that feeling as I got older. And so I did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do, go to college and get a good job and get married and have a baby. And it was in that process of becoming a mother where I woke up one day in the early stages of postpartum and was so unhappy and felt so confused and so lost. Yet on the outside, I had everything I ever wanted. And so I went through such a disconnect of how could I feel this way inside, and yet my outside world looks the way that I always dreamed it would look. And so through, it was messy. It was not clean. I didn't, I say now that like I really lacked the tools and even the awareness of knowing what was happening inside and knowing how to communicate that with my husband at the time. And deep down, like I just really wanted to feel desired and seen. And in the moment, there's no blame. Like I take full ownership and responsibility for the role that I played, because at the time I felt like I was communicating. I felt like I was expressing. But, looking back on it now, I was like kind of dancing around the idea of it. I never really communicated what was happening. And so slowly over time, kind of piece by piece, the picture perfect life started to crumble. And a man from my past kind of leaned back in when I was in a very low, vulnerable state. And instead of communicating those thoughts with my husband, I leaned into that relationship because I was receiving the feelings and sensations that I had been missing for so long. And so I have so much gratitude for all of it now, because for me it all had to happen exactly the way that it did in order for me to be where I am right now. So yeah, I know that that's kind of a long answer to your question, but for me, like, it really was motherhood, and I had a daughter, and I don't believe in coincidences. I think that that was very much on purpose, because the women in my family, there's generational cycles and patterns of not knowing how to communicate and pushing your needs down and not using your voice to speak up. And I just looked at my daughter and said, I'm not passing this on to you. Something has to change. And yeah, it was messy and it was extremely uncomfortable. And though I'm so grateful for every piece of how it happened now.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's actually wild how similar our stories are. And so familiar to so many women in my world as well. And I'm sure you probably in your world too. This absolute dissatisfaction after having ticked all of the things off the list that society tells us that we need in order to be happy. The achievements, the job, the house, the husband. You had a baby. I didn't make it to baby with my ex-husband, but like I remember feeling exactly the same way, but also feeling numb. Like I didn't really know how I felt. I think that was one of the craziest things. And I don't know about you, but it was only through the rupture of the affair that I actually started to feel feelings that I hadn't felt before. And I remember sitting with my coach, and I said to her, I have this really tight like pain in my chest, in the center of my chest. It really hurts. She's, yeah, that sounds like it's anxiety. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know. Were you able to feel your feelings, or were you in a similar kind of boat?
I relate to that so, so much. And what's so, there's so many lessons and learnings that come from anything difficult, but certainly, a divorce and an affair. And I recognized how much and how amazing I had become at pushing my feelings down. And there's so many like culturally accepted ways that we do that, right? Like having a cocktail or a glass of wine, or smoking a joint, or even sex, or, for me, it was just ultimately like wearing a mask, where as a woman, and I know many women relate to this, like we can do such a good job of kind of dressing things up, like putting on the nice clothes or putting on makeup, doing your hair, feeling externally well put together. And on the inside, though, having no idea what's happening. And I just was going through the motions and carrying on that mask and hosting dinner parties and hanging out with my friends and, being the cute mom in the cute workout clothes and, going to the gym and going on dates with my husband, but never really. And I like to say I kind of dipped my toes in, like, I was listening to the podcast and reading the books and having the deep conversations, or so I thought, but I would only go so far. And I really kept most of the people in my life kind of at arm's length. And the curse of that, though, is you never, like, nobody can ever really see you. And I so desperately wanted to be seen and wanted to feel loved, but I wasn't allowing it in. So yeah, I had become like almost a master at not feeling my feelings. And the sad thing is, like, I think I think I subconsciously carried so much fear around, like, if I go there, it will be so unbearable. It will be so dark. I have no idea what's going to come up and out. So I better keep up this mask. I better keep up this image for as long as I possibly can, because if people really knew what was going on inside, then I wouldn't be loved. And all I ever wanted was to be loved. So I carried that for a long time, and did a really good job at it until, the universe kind of takes you to your knees or slaps you in the face. And for me, I have to learn lessons that way. And I think most of us do, in order to, like, really wake you up to what's, being asked of you.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like I say that an affair is a portal because the pain is unavoidable, and especially exactly how you described. I was exactly the same on the outside. Looked the part, played the part, skinny body, had a successful job, had a group of friends that I love partying with, but I didn't let anybody close either. And it was almost like the only thing that was going to wake me up, the only thing would be something that was so painful that I couldn't actually ignore it anymore. And like you said earlier, even though I regret hurting myself and my ex husband in the way that I did, and I take full responsibility for that, I'm also I am grateful, just like you are, of that rupture, because there would have been no other way for me. There would have been, I mean, maybe there would, God forbid, but I actually think it had to be something that huge to wake me up.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
tell me a little bit about, because I am a big believer in shame being the root of affairs. Ultimately, we think the shame comes off the back of the affair, but I believe it started way younger. Is that something that you noticed in your experience and in your life?
Mm, that's a beautiful question. Yeah, shame is, it's such a silent killer. Like, it's such a silent player in the background that it can go completely unnoticed until something like this rises to the surface. And because there is, I'm sure you've experienced this in such a similar way, when an affair, becomes known. And, my affair, um I I really own that part of my past, exactly as you said, because I recognize that it had to happen for me. It truly had to happen for me. That was my awakening. That was the portal I needed to walk through. And so once you get to that place, it's like the shame softens or alchemizes into gratitude. And that's the way I see and feel it now. And though, because, the world that we live in with social media and with the internet, and how anybody and everybody just feels so comfortable giving their judgments or their opinions on other people's life, it's so interesting for me to witness shame that other people have attempted to project onto me as a result of me very openly and honestly sharing this part of my past. And that's why it's so important to allow yourself to feel all of these feelings. Because when you do, I no longer carry that feeling or that sense of shame anymore. I can see that that is other people's experience, or that's other people's something from their past that they're holding on to. And so that projection then becomes kind of put onto others, as if, like, oh no, you need to carry this level of shame for the rest of your life. I don't hold it anymore because I've really turned it into purpose and I've turned it into beauty. That's why I love the light and the dark now. I love the sadness or the grief, the heartbreak, and the love and the joy. Um, but to kind of like go back more into your original question, I absolutely, in the background, carried a deep sense of shame, but it was so masked and I had pushed it down for so long that I had no idea it existed. And a big part of that shame was attached to my sensual sexuality because I am, and I would argue that every single one of us are sexual beings, especially women. But because of the way that we've been raised, it's really not allowed or safe to express that part of yourself. And I also grew up in, I have two incredible parents. My mom was very free with her expression, walked around naked all the time, and was just very comfortable in her body. And you'd think that that would give me that same level of like comfort and confidence, but it almost did the opposite. It almost made me feel like ashamed for, like I wanted to kind of hide that part of me a little bit more, or it needed to be much more private because my mom was so open about it and talked about it so openly. So I pushed it down and then didn't know how to, once I got into a relationship and you kind of get into the habits and routines that you get into, after a while, it just felt so unsafe to voice some of these desires because if I started communicating them out of nowhere, it just felt like it wouldn't be received. So I continued to push them down and push them down and push them down. So for me, the shame really kind of came in that level of my like wildness expression. And so, of course, an affair where that was exciting and I could express myself in that way, like that had to be my experience personally because that was the only way that I was able to break free from it.
Yeah. And that is so familiar to so many women in my world. Like, there have been so many women who have actually experienced a sexual awakening in their affair. And I think that and then there's more shame on top of that, that now I've actually been able to experience pleasure or desire or turn on with an affair partner and not with my husband. And and it's exactly as you said, though, it's almost this area of total freedom where you get to be as wild as you want without this fear of being rejected or being told no or not being met or being laughed at for an expression of your own sensuality. And I completely agree with you, and I think there's so much systemic shame on women around their sexuality as well, on top of our own experiences growing up, that just crush us, actually crush our desire, our longing, our ability to be real. Because ultimately shame stops us from being truly authentic. It creates this mask, as you said, because God forbid you see me truly, because if you do see me and you reject me for that, then I might actually die. I'm going to die a death. And so it almost turns into the mask, as you said, the being the good girl, being the wife that has no needs. This was my experience anyway. I'm sure it resonates with you too, where you become this like Stepford wife, of how I need to be, and I get drunk at the weekend to process the stress, and ultimately there was zero emotional intimacy in my marriage. I didn't even know what that meant, if I'm honest with you. And so it's unsurprising when it ends up in an affair. Um, and so, what was it that you think for you was really happening underneath the affair? What do you think that it was that really led you there?
Hmm. Yeah, it was a lifetime of slowly, and it's such a slow build, and that's why for so many women, you have this moment or moments where you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't even recognize who you are anymore, because it's a slow drip over time. So for me, it was a buildup of, being the cool girl, thinking that like that was who I needed to be, who just went with the flow and didn't have a lot of needs and didn't ask for too much. And also, like, had all of these things that I could be proud of, all of these achievements, all of these external successes. And the especially for women, it that's attached to our physical appearance. So I made sure that I was always in really good shape, that my home looked and felt very comfortable and welcoming and beautiful, and that I could host all of my friends. And I was kind of like the gatekeeper of fun. I made sure everybody was having fun around me and I was fun. And then slowly it just became this like, really, who am I? And ultimately living two completely different lives, where there was, yeah, I love that you use the term Stepford wives, like that very much was my experience. But again, like I had done such a good job of wearing that mask that a lot of people, even though I would even argue that, like, because that carries energy. So like as I was kind of going through this unraveling slowly over time, I was losing friendships as well, friendships that I had had from childhood. And because there was this energetic exchange of something feels off, and my marriage was slowly creating more and more distance, even though I was trying so hard to pretend like everything was okay. And the affair gave me a place where I could express myself freely as a, wild and sensual and sexual being. And also, though, I could keep up this image, this picture perfect image, or so I thought I was, in my other life. And I kind of danced between the two for as long as I could, until eventually, outside forces, or, whatever you believe, the universe, God, kind of came in and was like, no, no more. And it unraveled in a way where I really lost everything. And, my friendships walked out, and I moved out of my house and I moved in with my parents for a little while. And that was my version of rock bottom, which felt very, very necessary for me, because once you reach that place, there's only up from there. So you get to build it the way that feels true for you. And as I started, using my voice, and I started really going inward and feeling my feelings and asking myself, where did that shame come from? And what was I wanting for the rest of my life? I got to build it in the way that felt true for me. And so, yeah, I just, share that part of my story, because I know so many women are, when you're in that rock bottom, the only thing that you want is to be out of it. You would give anything to get out. And I just, looking back on it, it was so necessary and it was so needed. So for anyone that's in that place right now, lean all the way in. You have nothing to lose. And that's why I see all of that as it's such a beautiful part of the human experience, because you get to rebuild from a place that is true.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that there is nothing worse than being at that rock bottom. And I think it's funny because I think there's lots of ways that we can have rock bottoms in our lives, right? Like some people will lose a parent at a young age, or any time losing a parent really, or a child, or going through a divorce, being the one that's been cheated on. But I think what's really unusual and what I just love about you is that we both used the fact that we were taken to our knees because of something that we did.
Mm.
And I actually don't believe there are any such thing as victims, really. I think we get stuck in like, I'm a victim of my life. And I believe that we create our lives, and some of it is really fucking painful. But to be the one that is like, yeah, you know what, I did this, I was the one that broke my life, and I broke someone's heart, and now I'm going to look at myself and I'm going to face myself like I've never faced myself before. And in some way, I think having to face that you've done something that you never thought you would, especially when you're a good girl and the high achiever and the one that's, as you say, rewarded for all the accolades that she has. It is an absolute stripping back of everything that you know yourself to be, and the confusion and the pain and the crippling shame and the loss of everything. Like, that was exactly my experience too. I don't have any friends from that part of my life anymore, and they were friends from childhood, you know. And it wasn't necessarily because of the affair coming out. Me and my ex-husband kept it very quiet, but it was almost because there was more falseness. I wasn't able to be true to them, and so there was, the disconnection became even more. They could feel it. They could feel I wasn't telling the truth. And you know, I talking of telling the truth, I also love the fact, I have to share this with my listeners, that I found Diera because she did a reel that went viral about her affair reveal. And this was a while before I did mine, actually. But then I had the same experience of a reel going viral. And you know, what was it, do you think, about that reel that's why this went?
I love that you're bringing this up because, you know, this may not be a direct hit for everyone. You know, this is a direct hit for you and I. We share this exact same experience, which is wild and a part of the human experience that I don't think we are set up to be on the receiving end of. And because there, with it comes a really intense level of hate and shame, and we're not built to hold that amount of hate in our body. And so I'll speak a little bit to what that experience felt like in the moment. But this piece feels like an important thing to share because, again, while this may not be like a direct hit for everyone, I know that there's like likely some version of this story that most people could attach to, where something happens, something big happens in your life, and you're never ever the same again as a result of it. And one of my best girlfriends said to me just a couple of days ago, she just reflected back to me that she's like, you are a completely different person today compared to the woman that you were before that video went out. And I just like looked at her and had so much, and the way that she was seeing me was like, you are just so calm and at peace, and you own your past and every experience that's led up to this point from a place of like, there's no judgment and there's more love. She's like, you have more softness and more love. And it was just such a beautiful reflection to hear that from somebody else, because I do feel different. And, you know, it's a very unique experience, what we both share and what we went through. But having something that big and also become that like public, that in normal circumstance, you're supposed to feel shame for. Like, how dare you share this part of your story with the world? That belongs in a private diary. Like, I got so many messages like that. And for me now, it's like when you own the deepest, darkest part of your story or your experience, there's nothing like that can hold you back from becoming the person that you're meant to be. And I had a really close friend of mine just sort of like laugh after that video was shared, just saying like, wow, the level of healing that your soul signed up for in this lifetime is really big. Because I mean, there's thousands. My video has and like majority of the comments are really awful. And, I don't read them anymore, but when it was first shared, I was reading them. And I also think that's where the opportunity is of like, is there anything that feels a little bit like that stings? Because that's the opportunity of, oh, okay, maybe there's a piece within that feels true for me. And maybe that's why it hurts. And maybe that's where the work still is. Can I go into that? Can I feel that feeling? And now I can read those comments and I feel so neutral. I feel nothing because that's not how I feel towards that experience anymore. And so I just use that as like a questioning of, is there anything in your life or in your experience that you're carrying shame or that you feel like has to live in a deep, dark closet somewhere that could never be told? Because the truth is, once you let it out, you unlock this new version of yourself. It's like this leveling up where, yes, that is something from my past that caused a lot of pain to many people that I really, really love. Also myself, a lot of pain to myself. Like, let's not, not to take away the pain that an affair causes on, your partner or your husband. Yes, absolutely. And though I would argue that we carry that pain more intensely than anybody else. If you really, really, use that as an opportunity to heal, then you're carrying that for a while. I didn't move past that overnight. There was a lot of dark nights of the soul in that experience over a long time, where now though I can look back on all of that and that moment when that video, and the reason why I believe connected with so many people is because most of us have been on one side or the other of that story. Whether you've been the one having the affair or you've been the one that was cheated on, we can relate to that. And it's excruciating. And it's likely one of the most painful feelings that we go through, other than, a death or a loss of somebody that's close to you. That level of heartbreak is the most painful experience that we can have. And that's why people feel so strongly about it. And so I understand, I get it. And my story, has a unique, there's a unique piece to my story, which was that I became pregnant with the man that I had an affair with. And there was so much shame attached to, how do you become pregnant with another man's baby while you're married? And that story replayed in my mind again and again and again. And so I didn't share that part of my story for a really long time with anybody. I walked through that all by myself because this man lived, on the other side of the country than I did. So I went through that completely alone, and I don't wish that upon anybody. And though, by me sharing that, hundreds of women responded saying that they were going through or had experienced the exact same thing. And if I had known when I was holding that there were other women who had also walked through that as well, that would have, I like don't even have words for what that would have done and how that would have helped me through it. And so, and I'm sure you relate to this, like, that's why I share, because I know what it felt like. I know what I went through, and I know how painful it was. And if anybody at that moment had reached out a hand and said, me too, like, there's yeah, there's still a lot of emotion there, because it would have changed everything for me. So for women that think like, I have to hold this, I can't share this with anybody, it's too dark, there's way too much shame here. I promise there's not. I promise there's another women or hundreds or thousands of women that are going through the same thing. And if we could all just, feel safe in whatever the experience is, and just the knowing that, hey, we have to go through this. We have to experience this, as painful as it is, because your biggest fear, for me, my biggest fear was being alone. And I ended up creating that in my own life. I self-sabotaged my own life to be alone so that I no longer carry that fear anymore. And so that's what I mean by like, it has to happen the way that it does. And so if we can all just offer a little bit more love and compassion for people that are going through something that you may not understand, I really, really think we would be a much, it would be a much more beautiful world.
Can you imagine? I mean, just like you sharing that about that part of your story that felt even too dark to share, and exactly why I share this too is that I was exactly where you are, and I felt like I was the only woman in the entire world that had done this, and that I couldn't tell anyone because if they did, then they would reject me, which was my biggest fear.
Mm.
And actually, it's the same as you, the terrifying fear of being rejected and being left alone. And then of course I had that, and I had that with my friends, I had that with my ex-husband, I had that, with my entire old life. And yet it's from there that you get to rebuild, and you get to rebuild as you, like truly you. And the real, I mean, the trolling, oh my God, that is like next level test of your healing, is how much can you handle the vitriol that comes. And I say so many times to my followers, don't go and read the comments, don't go and read the comments, because you're unconsciously looking for affirmation that you are terrible and you are wrong and that you are bad. And people will always have very, very strong opinions on people who have affairs. I did. I mean, I was cheated on by my boyfriend before my husband. He was sleeping with his ex-girlfriend for 4 years. So I never thought that I would then do that to my husband, who I loved. And so I feel it had to happen. I had to wake up. And talking of that, you've talked about God and the universe and the soul. Like for me, I had my spiritual awakening during this whole process. Before that, I was little Miss Atheist. I didn't even have any kind of religious background. And so it was through this, and I'd love to hear your experience, that I began to wake up to something so much bigger. And honestly, that was one of the things that has helped me so much in this process of healing, and being able to see that my soul chose this. Like my soul chose this as a wake up. And fuck, I wish it had chosen an easier one. But alas, that is what my soul chose. But yeah, tell me about you. What was your awakening journey? Was this because of the affair or something that had happened before? Like, I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. I'm such a believer in soul contracts, and we said yes to this a long time ago, and I'm with you. It's like laughable to think like wow, did it really have to get this bad? Did it have to be this painful? Did it have to be this messy? And for me, I know that it did, because I've had the same lesson come back around again and again and again. And, I also was in a relationship before I was with my daughter's dad, with my previous husband, for 13 years. So we met when I was 22. I was really young when we met. And my relationship right before him, he cheated on me a bunch of times, and it was excruciating. And we almost did this back and forth dance of like, oh, you're going to hurt me. Okay, then I'm going to hurt you. And then I got into a relationship with a man who was incredible and so safe and so loyal and so honest. And yet it was like I didn't know how to exist in that dynamic. And so I kept my needs small and quieted a lot of those big desires. And I know that for me, that experience had to happen. And I, learned that lesson a couple of times. Like in the early part of our relationship, I was unsure if I wanted to be there. And so I had an affair in the beginning of parts of the relationship, and we worked through it and we healed through it. So for me, that was a cycle and a pattern that existed. And so in order to break free from that, I really had to be completely taken to my knees. I had to lose everything to understand who I was beneath all of those masks and who I was beneath all of the parts of my experience, or even like the walls that I had built up for protection and survival that were so unconscious. Eventually, they all crumbled to the ground and I got to really know myself. And so being alone was exactly what I needed. That was exactly what my soul signed up for in order to truly understand the woman that I am and the woman that I was becoming and also came here to be. And now I share parts of this, my story, so freely. Like I have no shame. I own all of that, and I'm not deflecting or placing blame on anything external. I understand that I called this in, that I needed this experience. I wouldn't necessarily wish this upon anybody at all, but this had to happen for me in order for me to become this version of myself where now I have the most beautiful relationships in my life because they truly know and see me at my deepest level. And that's what we're all craving. We all want to feel safe to be exactly who we are. And those are also the people that I'm drawn to as well. Like I can sense, it's such a deep sense that you feel that level of energy. And as you talk about just the spiritual piece of all of this, I was the same. I was, raised in a very open-minded home. My parents, didn't push necessarily like their beliefs onto me, but they were very curious. And so I asked a lot of questions, and I was raised outside of religion and could kind of see it from a distance. And I think because of that, the term God felt like that wasn't for me. And I've also done, through this journey, I've done many plant medicine ceremonies, and I've had a lot of very physical inward experiences where I know there is so much more out there. And so I feel so comfortable using the word God for, interchangeable with the universe, but I believe it's in all of us and it's everywhere. And the signs are everywhere. And when you really tune in, like I think back to that part of my life when I was hiding and I was pretending and I was keeping up this masked version of myself, there were so many signs, but I ignored them. And I pretended like they weren't there and I pushed them down. And now, the littlest, smallest thing where like if my girlfriend and I say the exact same thing at the exact same time, we just like laugh hysterically because we just feel so connected. It could be so small, or even something like in a cloud. I'm so dropped into that stuff because I really believe like life is that deep. And a lot of times those are our like intuitive, especially with women, our intuition is the most powerful force that we have. And it's kind of that magic is sort of burned out of us and we don't see it. We lose sight in it. But when we go through an experience like this, it really drops you into how does this feel in my body? Does something feel off? And if somebody's questioning, because I'm sure you probably have part of your audience, or a big part of your audience are women maybe questioning their marriage or their relationship, or, dancing back and forth. Do I stay and fight, or do I walk away and fight and choose myself? And I understand that battle. I know how difficult that decision can be. And I always just, my biggest offering to that is slow down, pay attention to how things feel. Listen to the signs, listen for there's messages all over the place, especially like in our physical expression. Like my skin started breaking out on my face for the first time in my life. And I didn't understand why that was happening. So there's signs and messages everywhere, but it's up to us to start listening and paying attention and making, you don't have to change your life overnight, but making small changes or small shifts and asking God or the universe. If you're unsure, ask for signs, ask for help, but get specific. And I promise the answers will start presenting themselves.
Definitely. And you want to know something even funnier? So today I was looking at, before this podcast, I was like, oh, I'll just go on to Diera's Instagram page and I'll have a look at her stories to see what you've been up to today. And you posted a photo of a rainbow. And earlier on today, I was actually in a pre-podcast interview with somebody who was sat there. We were having this meeting, and she said, "Oh, there's a rainbow. I can see a rainbow behind you." Like, anyway, rainbows are the one of the signs that my spirit baby has been giving me about coming through. Hopefully, we're praying for next year, but it's so crazy. There are always signs, always, as you say, there is always that we just have to have our eyes open and our intuition tuned in, and we have to believe. And I think, I was the same as you around the word God. I really struggled with the word God for a really long time. I would universe, source, the divine. But this, I'd say, in the last year, where I have just become so much more comfortable with that word, because I just understand it at much more of a cellular level, that exactly that we are, and we are all connected. We all have God within us. Like, it's not some gray bearded man in the sky. To me, this is like a frequency, and honestly, the level of trust that I have in life, and I don't know about you, but when I was going through the decision at the end of my marriage, actually, exactly what you were talking about, and we didn't have children, so it was just really us that had to make the decision. But I remember just so terrified of the unknown, like, what on earth is going to be on the other side of this? I have no idea. I'm currently losing friends. I'm going to lose my husband. I'm going to have to move out of my beautiful house that we've just spent over £150,000 doing up. And what is my life going to look like? I have no idea. And I just remember getting to a point on this journey of awakening, which happens in layers, by the way. There's no way I could have got to where I am now a few years ago. Otherwise, my central nervous system would have completely freaked out. But I remember thinking to myself at one point, I have to just trust. I have to be willing to jump off the edge of this cliff and trust that everything that I have been through and am going through is for a reason. And I don't know what that reason is. I can't see into the future. I have no idea, but I have to believe that, because otherwise I'm gonna kill myself. Not literally kill myself, although there were moments where I thought about it for sure, but it was almost like, in being able to expand my mind into the possibility of there being something bigger than me that was holding me in this, that I found the strength to take decisions and leaps. And every time I took a leap of faith, every time I trusted and surrendered more and more and more and more, and I'm still learning to do it now over various things in my life, it's always delivered every single time. And perhaps not in the time frame that I have decided it has to happen in, like the baby that I have been hoping for many years in my life. But I know that I was never meant to have a baby with my ex-husband, and that had to be the catalyst in order for me to actually feel so discombobulated that I ended up looking outside my marriage. And but I have to trust and surrender. And for anybody that's listening to this, that's thinking, oh, they sound a bit mad, like, just try it. Just
Yes. Yeah, you said yes to everything that you said, and something that really stuck out to me was you said you have to believe, and you do. You have to believe. You have to trust that everything is happening in your favor. And yes, it may be painful. And yes, it may not make sense at all right now where you are, but I promise one day it will. And for me, you said that you were never meant to have a baby with your ex-husband. For me, I needed my daughter in order to break me free. And because otherwise, I know I would have stayed on that same path and pushed all of my needs down, likely for the rest of my life, and woken up one day so feeling so sad that I hadn't chosen me. And so, whatever the thing is that brings you to that place, and it again like may not make sense and it may be really confusing, but as long as you trust whatever is unfolding is going to take you to the place that you're supposed to get to. So what is the desire on your heart? What do you want? Because we all have them. We all have these deep fire burning desires inside of us. Get clear on that and start asking. Because, and again, as you said, like it may not be on the timeline that you want it to be. The song, you won't get what you want, but you'll get what you need. Like it will happen exactly the way that it's meant to happen. Someone once told me, stop focusing on the how and the when, focus on the why. And when you focus on the why, you are able to surrender to the things that are being presented, and they're happening in the perfect timeline that it's meant to happen. So you just have to keep trusting, because for me, I've always craved this deep soul level love, and I've had, bursts of it throughout my life, and I'm such a lover, so I've had a ton of love. And though there's just been that like deep soul connection that I've craved so much. And part of me wondered, like, when is this going to come? When is this going to happen? But I knew that I needed to loosen my grip. I knew I needed to let go of the idea in which that was gonna come into my life and just continue leaning into the things that are calling me forward, which, the work that you and I do wasn't on accident. Like our past brought us to this place, as messy and challenging and painful as it was. Like you and I both wouldn't be doing what we're doing without it. And so of course our soul signed up for this. Of course it did, but you can only see that when things are in the rearview mirror. And so again, that's why it's so important to trust and to let go and surrender, and to keep, leaning into the things that you feel called and pulled towards.
Yeah, and when you're in the pain of it all, of course, like I remember desperately trying to read books. I remember reading books like The Universe Has a Plan, and trying to like find what is the plan? Why am I doing why have I got to go through this? I don't understand. Like please to make it stop. I can't, it's unbearable. And as you say, like I just wouldn't be here now if it hadn't been. And I hear you on that search for your soul deep connection, and that, and it's I feel very blessed that I've met somebody that I do have that soul deep connection with, and I'm so grateful for. But again, I asked the universe, I took a huge risk by choosing celibacy, and saying to the universe, the next person that I meet, before I have sex with them, I want a really deep connection, and I want to spend 6 months getting to know them. And if we have a deep connection, then we can make it physical. And lo and behold, I met Adam 2 months later, who was also on a celibacy journey. And I knew in that moment, I mean, he worked in the building that I was living in. He wasn't at some spiritual retreat. I'm like, he's a dude from East London. Like he was just, but he'd gone on his own path. And I knew as soon as we had that conversation, I was like, this is the message from God. Like this doesn't happen, out of the blue. And, we made it physical 6 months later. I was actually going on a trip to the Amazon to do ayahuasca, and and it was all just magically perfectly timed. But if I had tried to force that, if I'd have gone looking for a man who was celibate, who was going to wait for me, I can almost guarantee it wouldn't have happened. I had to just be like, I don't know how the hell this is going to happen. at the age of 39. I want children and I'm willing to risk this because I felt it was so true to me that I had to follow what was in my heart, and what was in my heart was I wanted to have a connection with somebody that really saw me for more than just my body, for more than just my, achievements. I wanted someone to see me for me, and so therefore I had to see myself, and I had to really take a risk, and it's not easy to do that. Like everything that Diera and I are sharing, it's not easy, right? Unfortunately, but it is worth it. And there will be moments, and I don't know about you, but I had to learn the same lesson over and over again. Even after my marriage ended, I got myself into, I called it the year of the clusterfuck, because honestly I was just a disaster, and I made terrible choices with men, and I still got into more trouble, with more shame, with more, you name it, I did it. And but yeah, I still had to learn from that. I still wasn't at my rock bottom, even though I thought I was. And so it's okay if you're still making mistakes, or you can still see the patterns, and it feels impossible to break free from them. What it means, what it's telling me, is that there's still a lesson to be learned, and right now the support that you have isn't able to show you what that pattern is, or the root of that pattern. Because like, therapy is fantastic as a tool to make you feel safe and better inside of your heart, but really it's the deep embodied spiritual work that is going to help you break free from the repeated patterns, right?
Yes, absolutely. I love that you brought that through, because for me, that comes through relationship, with, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship necessarily. The only way, we can talk for hours and hours about these cycles and patterns, but until you are actually tested, until you are actually in that experience, how do you show up? How do you react? How do you respond? That's how you break a pattern. That's how you break a cycle. That's how you break free from that experience. And so, yes, of course, like, you're going to receive the lesson again and again. And for me, I needed to, in order for me to break that cycle. And yes, I also was really craving a deep soul connection. And though I knew I needed to be alone, because I had been in a relationship since I was 15, my entire life. My relationships had somewhat, even like, as one would end, one was beginning. And I kept having that experience, and there was nothing right or wrong. That was just the way that my life unfolded. And though, after my divorce, of course I needed to be alone. Of course I needed to sit in that experience. And I dated, and I certainly had my own version of, terrible experiences within that. Each one, though, served up a lesson. Each one shined a light on a piece of me that needed to be seen and needed to heal, and I needed to process. And in that period for me, I asked for deep soul level love, and I found that into friendships. I have two women in my life who I've never experienced friendship like this before, ever. We have the deepest, beautiful bond that I've never had before. And that was what was needed in that season of my life, so that I could feel whole in who I was before I was able to open my heart to a romantic partner. And now I'm in a place where I feel so unbelievably grateful to have someone incredible in my life, but I wasn't ready then. And I had to have all of those experiences, and the soulmate love that I was really craving and asking for came in a different version. So again, like, back to just listening and surrendering, like, things may not be handed to you exactly the way that you think they're going to, but it will make sense one day. And you have to have all of those experiences before you're ready for the thing that you actually really, really want. And when you can sink into that and allow that to be the experience, you welcome, it's like the universe becomes way more beautiful and magical, because you just have a deep sense of trust and knowing that, yes, I'm going to receive all of the things that I crave, but when and how that happens, I'm leaving that up to the way that it's meant to unfold.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. And it's so incredible when you realize that magic is real.
Mm.
Magic is real, and it's taking responsibility as well within that, of seeing like, oh, okay, I'm making a decision right now which I can see is, and maybe you won't see it straight away. Actually, I really didn't whilst I was in the year of the clusterfuck, as we've branded it. But I couldn't see it when I was in it, but I could see it after a few months. And when you see it, it's hard to step out of it, because it means you've got to shift everything. Like, I was not the celibate girl. Like, I was not that girl. But I had to make a radical choice. That, again, it was the same as when I decided to leave the marriage. It was like, I have to make a radical choice. I could stay where I was. I could stay in a marriage where it's fine. He doesn't feel like he loves me, but maybe one day he will. And it's the same as choosing to be celibate when you're 39 and single and living in East London and thinking, I've got no idea how I'm going to meet somebody who's going to do this, but I'm having to do this because this is for me. And this, I know this is what I need to do. And so, yeah, it's not easy, and most people will stay on the sofa watching Friends, as one of my mentors used to say. She's like, most people just want to sit on the sofa watching Friends. They don't want to get up and do this work, because it is freaking hard. It is hard to face yourself. It's hard to begin to dissolve the masks that you've been wearing, to start to see parts of your life that aren't actually in true alignment with who you are, and being willing to let it go. And the number of times, the amount of grief I have felt, the amount of shame, yes, but grief. Like, grief is a huge part of this journey. And I remember I didn't even realize until one of my mentors in a group call said, who here has experienced grief, and who's recently experienced grief. And I was like, oh, no, I haven't lost my grandma since I was 24, so probably not me. And she was like, Alex, you're going through it right now, you are in it. And it was like, oh shit, yeah, I am. Like, I'd forgotten how much of the grief was a part of this experience, alongside the shame and the guilt and the fear. But grief is huge. And the experience of being able to feel that grief and really touch that grief meant now that I feel that I can experience far, far deeper love, because I let myself go there, and I still let myself go there when I need to. I had a miscarriage last year, and I was determined to feel the grief. My body was like, no, no, we're not doing it. No, 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 no. But I was like, no, we are doing this. And I got my therapist back, and I started to really work on it, because I'm not afraid of it anymore. And I think that not having fear of our feelings is true freedom, because when I can handle anything. And I think, having been through an affair and coming out, and a divorce, and coming out of the other side, and all the other moments of grief and patterns and all the pain, it's this feeling of, fuck, I can get through anything now. Like, I know that I have the resilience within me. I have enough of an adult self that can hold me through all of what I need to go through. And before that, I did not. I did not have that. Well, I did, obviously, it was inside of me, but I didn't know I had it.
Yeah, yes, I love everything that you just said. I think so many of us resist it. We resist going to those places because the fear is so unknown, because most of us never allow ourselves to fully go there. Or maybe you've experienced heartbreak before, and you know how completely ground shaking, crippling, excruciating that feeling is, and you never want to allow yourself to feel that again. So you keep your guard up in relationships, or you wear a mask, or you keep somebody at arm's length, because the fear of going there again feels way too much. But once you really go all the way in, once you really feel that deep sense of grief, whatever experience brings that forward for you, you know that you can handle it because you're still here and you've made it through. And once you make it through something really hard, you know that it's worth the risk, and we all say yes, we all love, we all do. It's why so many of us, I believe it's why we're all here. And there is a risk in that, though. There is, when you say yes to love, the risk is losing it all. And the truth is, we're all going to lose it all one day. The person we love is going to pass. And we still say yes. So I just share this from such a place of knowing how painful it is and knowing how beautiful it is, because it's both, right? Like, we get to hold both. And so I'll always say yes to love. After that experience, I have no more fear of, and it doesn't mean it's not hard. Like, yes, absolutely. I've felt heartbreak and I know how painful it is. And though I know that I'm going to make it through. So I will always say yes. I will always lean in. And I choose now to do more things that make me uncomfortable. A small version of that is I like to run now. And I also kind of hate running. It is really, really hard. And this is a silly example, but like, this is a present, something very present in my life that I choose to put myself in that experience, because the other side of that is a deep sense of like almost a euphoric experience afterwards. The high that you get from running, I love that feeling. And it's the same thing in a relationship. The high that we feel from love is so life-giving. I mean, it changes people's DNA when you are truly seen and safe and in love, in a relationship where you feel that soul connection. It's almost like anything is possible. So yeah, I resonate with everything that you said on such a deep core level, because while yes, it is hard, everything that we're saying, I'm sure, for somebody that's in the mud, that's in the thick of it right now, easy for us to talk about our experience so freely and openly. And though we wouldn't be where we are right now if we had avoided any of that part of the journey. So I just say to everyone, like, go all the way in. It's not as scary as you think it's going to be. And it's actually going to be way more beautiful than you imagined it could be. So allow yourself to feel the things that are asking to be seen right now.
Oh my God, I love this conversation. I've loved every single moment. I feel like we could talk forever on this. And I really, my intention or my desire for everybody that is listening to this, and wherever you're at on your journey, just like Diera said, is, even when you're in the mud, is just to be able to see that there is hope. Like, there is hope on the other side of this. And if you can lean in, and if you can get the right support, and if you can begin to trust and begin to listen to yourself and listen to your intuition and listen to your body, that honestly, it is incredible on the other side. I am living in a place, and of course, as you said, Diera, like, there are still hard times. I still have to feel grief. I still have to feel fear. I still have to feel rage. I still feel all of it. But on the flip side of being able to feel all of the darkest, most painful parts of being a human means that you are opened up to the most amount of bliss and joy and love that is possible. And would I take the hard times to experience the good times? 100%, I would. 100%. And so I would love, Diera, for you to share with my audience how they can find you, how they can come and work with you. I really hope that we can stay connected, because I feel like there's so much that we can give the world. But please do share with everybody.
Yeah. Instagram is the best place to find me. That's where I'm most active, and it's Diera Story, ITS and Diera Story. I'm sure you'll include that somewhere. And please come and say hi. I love human interaction and having real conversations. And, I'm sure you've experienced some of this. It's being as vulnerable and raw and open as we are. It makes many people uncomfortable. And because we aren't taught to share our life in this way, and a lot of people use social media as, the highlight reel, and nothing right or wrong with that at all. I think that that's, if that's what you feel called to share, that's beautiful. And though the human experience is both, right? It's light and dark. It's beautiful and it's the mess. And I'm sure that's what you feel called to communicate. I do. I certainly feel like it's my purpose to share it all. And as a result of that, women, perfect strangers, come to me and share the most deepest, darkest secrets that they've never shared with anybody. I get messages like that all the time, constantly. And that's what it's all about for me. And that's why I will forever, for as long as it feels true to me, share in this way, because it feels like this is what I was put on this earth to do. And so please, come, if anything resonated or connected with you, I would love to hear that. I feel so lucky and fortunate to get to do what I do, working with women and helping them through the heavy stuff that, I had support with when I was ready for it. And I just will continue doing my very best to continue to lift every single woman up with me. And the more that, women loving on other women, I think there's something incredibly powerful about that. And if I can do my role to soften that competitive energy that, I think the world has kind of pinned us against each other in a lot of ways. And some of the most beautiful relationships I have in my life are with other women. And it's conversations like this that helped me see how necessary that was. So I'm super grateful for you, Alex, and everything that you do and the message that you put out into the world. It's so needed. And I know that you can agree with that, with what you do. And so I'm cheering you on. And this was such a beautiful, beautiful moment for me. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such an honor, Diera, and I can't wait to see where you go and where we go and where all of this deep, dark sharing helps the world in ways that we don't even know yet. So thank you so much. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for listening to the Deeper Love podcast. If today's episode spoke to you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you're ready to go deeper, you'll find all the ways to work with me in the show notes. Until next time.